right, Luther, welcome back. It's week 3.
No, time just flies.
I know. Well, this is going to be an interesting week. Let's just get right into it, shall we?
Indeed.
Oh, yes. Strategies to increase equity in CS. I believe that this is a passion of both of ours.
Indeed. We spend more time on it than you might expect.
Yes, that's for sure. So what is wrong?
Yeah, the first thing to say that is wrong is that CS isn't equitable. As many things in our culture, power is unequally distributed, and demographics that have power tend to accrue more, and computing is increasingly an avenue towards influence and control.
Right. And I think another thing that's wrong is that you and I are the dominant culture. And so we, speaking on this is can be uncomfortable for us, but also we don't know everything about it because of who we are and our bases, our backgrounds and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I was just at the CSTA conference this week, the Computer Science Teachers Association conference, and Shana White did this presentation on critical race theory, which this is just a little tiny part, but I just kind of wanted to give you a sort of reminder of where we are with these problems. Especially, this is obviously a lot dealing with racism, but there are a lot of problems. And she made a big point of these posters, be resilient and be kind. Like, they're not going to fix the problem. There's these institutional, interpersonal, systemic racism issues that we have to address in all of school, but also in CS.
Yeah, and on that, everything you've learned so far in all of your different trainings about being an inclusive teacher, they still apply in CS. Although we'll also talk about some other things we think might be particularly relevant.
So a couple of stats that she shared that may or may not be a surprise to you is, over 81% of K-12 teachers are white. Over 51% of K-12 CS teachers are male, which seems like pretty good, but when we dug into it, what did we find was the average for male teachers?
So about 3/4 of K-12 teachers are female,
right?
But only half of the K-12 CS teachers are female.
Right. And then we have 74% of cis female, 59% of Black, 66% of Hispanic students have never had a teacher tell them that they would be good at CS. And we have found this personal invite, this making it a personal thing for a student, especially one who is underrepresented, it makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, it's unlikely that these people, because of culture, will have been told they'd be good at CS externally. And if you also don't teach them, then why would they believe it?
Right.
Also note that we actually, if you pull up these slides, that is a link that you can go look at the full study if you're interested in more data.
Yes. But we can do things, right? We can make a difference.
Indeed. So this week I have 3 videos I recorded to show you. Just brief overview of what you're going to see. The first one is going to talk about implicit bias, sometimes also called unconscious or subconscious bias, similar, not quite the same. But anyway, first video is going to explain where does it come from and how can we mitigate it. Mitigation is a term I really want to emphasize. We aren't going to solve problems very often when we're dealing with equity issues. But we can often mitigate their effect so they have less influence in creating more level playing field. And then I'm going to talk about some specific biases in CS in particular, biases you probably don't see in other disciplines. And again, because these are implicit biases, they're likely in the minds of your students as well as you, even if you didn't realize them in advance. So we'll try to make you aware. And then we're going to go through a list of several side effects of underrepresentation. Minority groups tend to have a lot of different challenges, including various kinds of micro and macro aggressions and so forth against them. But some things are just side effects of having a brain and being underrepresented. We'll sort of talk about some of these things that you should be aware of, again, with this idea that knowing more about them can help you avoid triggering them and mitigate their impact to some degree.
Yeah, these videos are really awesome. So thank you so much for doing them.
My pleasure.
So encompassed in all this is this idea of culturally responsive teaching, which many of you are probably familiar with, but we just wanted to do a quick little overview. Again, students are really at the center of this. So we want to meet students where they are.
And on that, let me comment. Sometimes we think about meeting them where they are. We shouldn't immediately try to take them away.
Yes.
So
We're not trying to meet them and then bring them over to us. We're trying to.
You don't learn about their culture just enough to bring them into yours. You learn about their culture to continue teaching them in their culture.
Yes, which brings us to this. We want to value students from diverse backgrounds and value their backgrounds.
Indeed. This one can be tricky. Often lessons are presented in a way that represents the lesson in the mindset of whoever created the lesson, which, as we just saw, is unlikely to match the students' cultures. So it can be useful to think about the students' cultures and see how can you adjust those lessons or design changes to them to more accurately represent the cultures your students are actually coming from.
Yeah, and this might, mean you have to talk to students about their cultures and actually get ideas from them, because you're probably not going to have a lot of familiarity with it. And this is just so impactful when you can have lessons that already appeal to a student's interest. You get their intrinsic motivation going. Wow, they'll do so much for you.
This is one of the benefits if you think about that experimentation mindset we've talked about before. When you let students experiment, watch where they go, and it will help you understand where their interest is intersecting with what you've been talking about and give you ideas about where to focus on more to continue engaging their interest. So, lessons and negative stereotypes. There's lots of ways of reinforcing negative stereotypes, and one of the videos will actually even talk about how saying they're wrong can reinforce them in a counterintuitive way. You generally want to avoid bringing them up and reinforcing them at all.
Yeah, I think that's something I learned from you, Luther, is that bringing them up is actually a problem. Because I used to think, I got to bring them up so I can, they're out in the open. But you offer some very sage advice on how to do that in the right way. This is huge. And actually, once your students feel like they're important members of a community, they're going to help you grow the diversity and inclusion in your community.
This is also another reason to really play up the I don't know everything that will be natural when you start and less natural as you go on. Helping them feel like they can show you something helps them feel like they're actually members of the community and not merely kids that are being told something by an adult.
Yep.
So what are the impacts of societal issues and perceptions on diverse people? This is a broad topic, and a topic that's going to be custom to each individual kind of person and each individual in some cases, right? Where society and perceptions about them, about their family, and so on will change how they're interacting with things, will change their level of willingness to engage and how they engage with material. And the better you understand that, the better you can respond appropriately.
And this is a huge one for me. I'm not a huge fan of assessment if we're talking grades and filling out a quiz or things like that. And I think CS provides a great opportunity for not doing one size fits all.
I will also say this is a benefit of the current stage where the computing SOLs are not yet in an SOL test. While that will mean that some people won't teach them, which is a downside, it also means that you don't need to hit exactly those questions and rubric items. Instead, you can look at the goals and try to assess how well your students are moving towards that understanding that will assist them later in life.
Yeah, and I think in elementary and middle school, like having students have a positive experience with computer science education is like the big outcome we want to have. Because then once they get to high school and college and do need to take the tests that they show that they understand concepts, they're much more likely to do that. But if they have a bad experience with CS early on, it is so hard to get them back. All right, so we got a lot for you to look at, a lot of videos to look over. We're hoping this week that you get with the CS lesson and figure out ways that you're going to include some equity strategies that you've learned. This week, we're hoping to see some more of you at we're calling them discussions now, because really that's what they're turning into on Monday and Wednesday. So if there's a question that came up for you or something you'd like to discuss with others, because it's hard to think about these things sometimes when you're just on your own. Like, how is this going to relate in different environments and with different students and stuff? And so use this opportunity to get together with colleagues and discuss it. And then we'll do our show and tell again on Friday. The fourth week, I'll be sending out a survey at the beginning of this week with a doodle poll, because we really want to get as many of you together as possible in either a coffee hour celebration or a happy hour celebration of getting through the CS Institute and the CCSC cohort.
One more thing about the discussion. So one of the things I found after doing many workshops on diversity and inclusion type of topics is that it's very useful to explain to somebody else what you think you're going to do, and then have them point out the 2 or 3 implicit biases that slip through without your noticing. This just always happens. Your mind has lived your entire life in an unequal world and will sort of insert little things you didn't notice. So strongly encourage you, even if you think you know exactly what you need to do, to show up to one of these, share your ideas, and have a little bit of extra input come from your peers and us.
All right, well, we hope to see you there, and otherwise, good luck and have fun.